One thing I was not expecting to find while studying the Proverbs 31 woman was strong military connotations. And if you'll stick with me for just a couple of minutes, we'll uncover the profound significance of it. In verses 10 through 31 of this final chapter of Proverbs, we find a very creatively written acrostic poem in which each line starts with the letter of the Hebrew alphabet. This would have made it much easier for young men to memorize these descriptors of a woman who fears the Lord. So the first line of the poem poses its central question: an excellent wife who can find? That's how the English Standard Version translates the opening phrase from the Hebrew. Other versions describe the subject of the poem as a woman of noble character, or a virtuous or valiant woman. This adjective means strength, worth, or excellence. It comes from a verb that means to be firm or strong, and it's often used in situations in the Bible regarding military might. Valor, bravery, efficiency, and wealth are other connotations of this descriptor. It has both moral and military meanings. This military theme continues throughout the poem, starting with the very next verse. Verse 11 reads, "The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain." That word gain also means spoils, as in plunder of war. What we see here is a picture of what is gained for the husband by the strength and valor of his wife, who in a sense plunders his enemies. And in verse 17, she dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. We have a picture here of moral and physical strength. She's clothed in the strength she receives from the Lord and physically prepared to tackle the day. You could say she rolls up her sleeves and girds up her loins for the endeavors ahead. One last example we'll look at is in verse 19. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. I was surprised to learn that this phrase, stretching out her hand, is used several other places in the scriptures, but usually has an aggressive or a hostile connotation of acting against someone or something. Obviously, Proverbs 31:19 is the exception to that hostility, but we do have a picture of a woman who works mightily. There's a fierceness and aggressiveness to her work for the family. All that is to say, there's a significance and strength to the role of the woman who fears the Lord that can easily be overlooked in our culture. Much of the way she spends her time is on mundane tasks. She gathers materials and food. She plants seeds. She sells goods. She shares with the needy. She provides clothing for her family and generally cares for her household. None of these tasks are considered extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but the clear biblical picture is of a woman who goes to battle through her moral strength and her physical labor on behalf of her family. I read a quote this week from Paul David Tripp that said, "If God doesn't rule your mundane, then He doesn't rule you, because that's where we live." Isn't that the truth? The mundane is where we live the majority of our lives. There are a few dramatic highlight reel moments, and though much of our social media profiles can portray glamorous moment after glamorous moment, we live in the common and the ordinary. These military connotations used in describing a woman who fears the Lord struck me deeply this week. There is no mundane work in the kingdom of God. This woman is going to battle on behalf of her family, and she's winning them spoils. Though the world may see her daily tasks of caring for her household as menial, the scriptures tell us that they are valiant. So I bless you today with encouragement as you go about the everyday tasks that are before you. May you enjoy them with a deep sense of purpose, knowing that they're bringing eternal good to those around you.